us.
We need a break.
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the horrorofbabylonpodcast@gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Horror of Babylon, where we discuss Daniel.
My favorite subject.
Oh, God. Narcissus over here. Anyways, I am Ryan, and with me, as always, is Daniel.
I can't stop looking at myself.
Oh, God. At least your skin's not purple.
Oh, I wish.
That would be cool.
That would be so cool.
Now I kind of want purple skin.
Because then I could be Purple Dan.
You'd like the Purple Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Purple Man, the Purple Dan.
Purple Dan, who's a purple man.
Yeah.
And he started a wife and had a purple clan. And me, I would just say I'm a purple fan.
We could turn this into a children's book.
No. Because I think it would just come off as racist.
Okay.
Thank you to our patrons, including Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the full purple patron. And Ben, and Ben the Fourth,
the Purple of Hope,
and Mia the Fifth,
the Purple Maker.
No, Purple Rain.
Oh,
Purple Rain was the easiest setup.
Purple Rain.
And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at 4horsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it in the store, say hello to the proprietor, Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas. Trigger warning, Daniel, if you're triggered by Daniel, this is not the episode for you. You probably don't listen to our podcast if you're triggered by Daniel. But just in case you really like me and Hef and you don't like Daniel, you should probably skip this episode.
That's at least half of our viewers.
Maybe. And first, what exactly are we doing? So we have been kind of slammed with books and movies. If we basically read a book every 2 weeks and watch 1 to 2 movies every week, more or less.
We need a break.
Yeah, so we're trying to do some easier content going into the summer. And it's sort of prior to this, the easiest content we've probably done is our Simpsons episodes, which we'll still do, but I wanted to try something else. One of my favorite podcasts is a Magic the Gathering podcast called Legacy Breakfast. It has 2 hosts, Stu and Stu, who they're from Great Britain, and they did 2 episodes where they each interviewed each other, and you learn a lot about the hosts, and I just thought it was super interesting and a really easy way for us to get some more content out there without us having to watch a movie or read a book.
Are they the Pete and Pete of Magic podcasts?
They are 100% the Pete and Pete of Magic podcasts. Okay. So if you like Magic, especially if you like Legacy, because that's a Legacy podcast, check them out. I will have them link to their show in the description. And I 100% lifted all of the questions that they used in their show. And a lot of them are geared around Magic the Gathering. And I kind of had to convert them to horror. So if something sounds kind of weird,
that's the reason.
That's the reason.
Okay.
May add some stuff as we go, but the majority of these I took directly from them, so credit to them. So first, our history with Daniel. Daniel, what is your history with Daniel?
Unfortunately, I've been trapped in this body for a very long time with other Daniel. And,
yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, he's the logic and reason side of me. Mm-hmm. And, he's always trying to get me to do things like look both ways before I cross the road.
He's the Spock to your Kirk.
Yeah. So I've been stuck with me for a while.
I met Daniel in our anime club in college.
Yeah, we were so cool.
Yeah. And he just couldn't learn my name and just kept calling me Chris. And I just I'm not Chris.
Yeah, so I called you not Chris for
10 years.
10 years.
Something
Wow.
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just been downhill ever since then. But I'm really bad at making new friends. So I just tend to keep the ones I have.
Same.
Yeah.
It's because we had 5 different members named Chris.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking you were one of them.
Oh, there were a lot of Chris's.
Yeah, that's the reason.
I think we did an anime trip, a convention trip with at least 4 Chris's. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whew. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into these questions. The first one is the quick fire round. I'm giving you one rule. You can answer these any way you like, except one rule. You cannot ask me clarifying questions.
Okay. I cannot ask clarifying questions. I like that.
Okay. Occupation.
BHT.
Specialist subject.
The female anatomy.
I regret this already. Charisma modifier.
-5.
That's higher than I was going to give you. What is your most useless qualification?
My psychology degree.
What is horror to you?
It is the reflection upon which we examine our greatest dreads.
How and why did you start consuming horror content?
Because my father was extremely irresponsible and would just rent me any movie I wanted, and so I got addicted at a very young age.
And what effect has it had on your life?
Have you heard my sex stories? Because I think 9 times out of 10 I can blame it on a horror movie I've seen.
I still regret this. Why did you start this podcast?
Well, I'd been wanting to do a podcast for a really long time, or some sort of creative outlet. And I was working on a horror novel at the time, and I thought, well, this would be a good way to help motivate me to keep me writing, and maybe I could do it with a friend, and we could get some content out there and have some fun. And then eventually, if the podcast goes anywhere, then I can use it to pimp my book, or if my book goes somewhere, I can use it to pimp the podcast. And so far, both of them are in about the same position. So,
okay. Please explain baked beans with breakfast.
I can't. I'm not British.
What is your favorite breakfast?
That would be bacon and eggs.
What is your favorite era of horror?
Favorite era of horror? I'm gonna go early to mid 90s, because that was before we got into the super heavy CG stuff. You had a lot of practical effects. You had a lot of monster movies, creature features. There's some really good slashers in there too. And even though I didn't read books at the time, I also think some of the best horror novels were written in that. That's really classic Stephen King era.
Okay. And then what are some examples, specific examples from your favorite horror era?
Okay, so you got The Nightmare on Elm Street used to be one of my favorite franchises. Scream was towards the end of that era, but that kind of, reinvigorated my love of slashers and the genre. I'm trying to think of a good creature. Oh, Pumpkinhead. Though I guess that came out in the 80s, but I saw it in the 90s.
Since our experience with Leprechaun, I'm afraid to rewatch Pumpkinhead.
It holds up much better. I've watched it more recently.
All right, that's good.
I actually think it's a legitimately good movie, as opposed to just being a good horror movie.
We'll have to do Pumpkinhead at some point.
Yeah. There's more than one actor that really tries in that movie.
That's good.
And it has themes.
What is a movie that you have a lot of nostalgia for?
A lot of nostalgia for?
Or it could be a novel or game. What piece of horror media do you have a lot of nostalgia for?
I'm gonna go with Nightmare on Elm Street again. I saw that like again an irresponsible amount of times as a child.
And what is your favorite piece of jank horror?
Jank horror? Not the Leprechaun.
No.
Probably something like Evil Dead, just something kind of goofy like that. No, I know. Return of the Living Dead.
Still need to watch that.
Yeah. It's surprisingly funny, but also horrific.
What kind of horror content will you not consume?
Extreme horror. Had a really bad experience with a little book called The Confederado. I tried reading another one, and while it was written better, it just... Still just... I don't like to read about a girl's braces ripping off a dude's foreskin. It's not appealing to me. It's not if that gets your if that makes you hard, all the power to you. I'm not here to yuck your yum, but it makes me squeamish.
Yeah. I can't say that I'm
yeah, going.
Yeah.
I had one of my work friends is obsessed with extreme horror, and I read that book for her.
Discuss a horror experience of which you have fond memories.
Okay, so a few years ago, I had a really good friend doing a film project for a college class. So we went up to a haunted graveyard and tried to invoke a witch spirit. And while I do have some regrets about that trip, it is a very fond memory of me because I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, that was not the one I thought you were going to bring up, but
Yeah.
That's good too. What is your most proud horror moment?
When we were on that trip and I hit a piece of metal and made 10 people jump. That's a joke.
What is your biggest horror mistake?
Thinking I could write it.
A little harsh on yourself.
Yeah.
What opening to a piece of horror media always puts you on edge?
I'm a big fan of the slow opens. It's gonna make me sound super pretentious. Anything from the A24 films where it's you can tell something's off, but you can't quite put your finger on it because the movie hasn't really gotten going yet. Something where you're just taking something a little mundane and you're twisting it slightly for an opening. Like a kid playing, but they're playing just a little bit wrong, and you can't figure out what it is exactly they're doing. And all of a sudden, you realize, oh, they're chopping off birds' heads and sewing them to toy bird heads.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
How do you envision the end of horror? If it would just stop completely as a genre, how would that happen?
Stephen King and Dean Koontz finally have their climactic duel at the end of time.
You're ripping off Tolkien, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It ends with Stephen King doing a father-son Kamehameha, but behind him is instead of his father is Mary Shelley or Bram Stoker or just all of them, and they're just they're all.
Now you're ripping off Star Wars.
Yeah, they're all of the horror.
Whatever.
But it doesn't work, and Dean Koontz wins.
No.
And that's how horror.
There is no horror. It's just slightly dark thriller.
Yeah. Which ends up being closer to what I've ended up writing.
Okay. What is your monster of the week?
You might be expecting me to say vampires, but I think I'm just super nostalgic for werewolf movies. The Howling. I think transformation scenes, if you can do them well, go a really long way for horror movies. So I'm gonna go with werewolves.
What is happening on the art on Stasis? Which is a magic card, and you just Google magic card Stasis.
Okay.
I could not convert that question to horror.
Pennywise and a werewolf are having some kinky foreplay, but trying to keep it balanced. So it's super consensual.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Will they ever make a clown planeswalker card?
I think so. I'm honestly, with some of the planeswalker cards that we've gotten, I'm surprised they haven't. I think it'll end up being another Tybalt in disguise. That's just going to be his thing from now on, is he's going to be in other realms in disguise, and next time he'll be a clown.
Okay. Following questions come from KindleReviews.com, so thank you, Kindle Reviews.
I love Kendall Reviews.
Kindle is in the name. not as in the book thing. What is your favorite childhood book, horror or otherwise?
Favorite childhood book? God, there's this... I can't remember the name of it. It was about a squirrel, and my mom used to read it to me all the time.
I thought you were going to say the Death Note thing.
Oh, Charlie. I thought about saying Charlie the Choo Choo.
No. Freaking the one about the super smart people who battle with their smarts. I can't remember what it's called. It's like, you always say Death Note's like that book.
I can't remember now that I'm on the spot.
What's that novel about super smart people? Fuck. Okay, that got me nothing. Okay, well, they made a movie about it a few years ago.
Are we talking about Ender's Game?
Yes.
That's my favorite book.
Okay.
It is considered a kid's book. But between it and Shogun, those are like always battling for the top spot of my favorite book.
Okay.
I read that in high school.
Let me go back to those questions, because...
You Googled who is the smart book.
Yeah, I totally lost them. Okay, do you have a favorite horror movie director?
Mike Flanagan.
And favorite horror movie?
It's the American remake of Ring. That's still probably my favorite. It has a lot of stuff that really appeals to me.
What are you reading right now?
The Dark Tower 4.
Wizard and Glass.
Yeah.
Cuthbert's Revenge.
Yeah. It's a prequel, which we all know is Daniel's favorite.
It's not a prequel. It's a flashback book. It's a book about a flashback that has flashbacks within flashbacks.
I wonder who's going to live at the end except nobody.
Technically.
Oh, Roland.
Well, we'll save it.
Okay, we'll table.
What was the last great book you read?
The last great book? Mm-hmm. Like, the last one that, like, super wowed me would have been Taipan, which you had built up for me. Said it had the best ending of any book you'd ever read. And I was really high on, like, Shogun. And I didn't think Shogun had, like, the greatest ending, but
it was good.
It was good.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there, I'm comparing it to Shogun, and I'm like, this book's pretty good. It's in that same kind of range. But I'm like, man, this ending isn't... I'm gonna have to disagree with her, and then the ending actually happened, and I'm like, holy I was literally, like, I'm listening to it on an audiobook doing my dishes. I drop my dishes, and I start going, no fucking way!
Yeah, I struggle to think of a book ending I like more than Taipan.
And the thing is the rest of the book is also fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it's, there's a lot of books that I like that might, like, overall be more appealing to my sensibilities, but I think it was, like, the last book that I would have called actual art that I read.
That's fair. Ebooks, audiobooks, paperbacks, or hardcovers?
I prefer paperbacks.
Who were the authors that inspired you to write?
Okay, so Stephen
Apparently,
King.
this is for an author.
Stephen King is by far one of the biggest ones. I used to make the mistake of trying to emulate his style, which is something that I now recommend people don't do. You gotta kind of figure out your own way to tell a story. I also do like the parts of Dean Koontz I really like, which is probably why I lean more towards writing like thriller-esque types of stories these days. And Stoker is another big one, just because I like the epistolary novels. I've tried my hand at it. I haven't quite got the hang of that, but I really want to explore that kind of storytelling. And H.P. Lovecraft, I would say minus the racism, but you've met me.
What scares you?
Dying alone.
You find yourself on a deserted island.
Oh no, I'm alone.
You can choose one of the three following people to be with you.
I'm not alone.
One, you can choose a character from your own writing. 2, you can choose a fictional character from someone else's writing. Or 3, you can choose an actual person who's not a family member or a friend.
I would choose Moses. That way he could part the sea and I could walk home.
I think Moses was only able to part the sea to save his people, not just because he has the power to part seas.
Yeah, but people think I'm Jewish online for some reason, so he might make the same mistake.
So a few more questions from thestudentroom.co.uk. Very British. What is your favorite aspect of a horror film?
For a film, I'm going to say, like, atmosphere. Because there's stuff that you can do in film that you can't do in books and that you can't do in, audiobooks. Where you can mix sound design with the set, with the acting. So when you can just meld all of that together, you get something that's it's unique to film. I guess you can also get it in video. It's unique in the visual medium.
Somewhat do it in audiobooks.
Yeah.
Somewhat. Like, The Face and The Exorcist you can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
But you can do a bad Brooklyn accent or Jewish accent.
Yeah.
How did he read that? Badly.
What scares you the most in a horror film?
These days, I get weak when kids die.
Yeah. We're doing Cujo in May.
I think it's because, I was a stepdad and I always picture Asher as the kid now. So it makes it a little bit harder. So adult fear, like actual bad things that could happen in my everyday life.
In a trailer for a horror film, what would entice you to go see it?
It's not hard to get me to want to see a horror movie. So I'm just gonna, if your trailer's just well made in general, I'll probably give it a chance. Even if I think the premise is stupid.
What is your favorite horror subgenre?
This one goes back and forth a lot. I'm a really big fan of cosmic horror in a very general sense where, like, everything in the universe is meaningless and, like, the existential crisis that comes along with that.
What do you dislike about horror films?
A lot. There's a lot of filmmaking conventions meant to appease normies, and it always leads me to feeling like an old man going, I should have kept my hobby harder.
Do you feel... We're skipping number 6, because I already asked it. Do you feel that documentary-style horror films such as The Blair Witch Project are more effective than purely fictional horror films such as Saw?
No, because there's only, like, 2 good ones.
What puts you off when watching a horror movie?
Bad acting.
What do you expect to see when watching a horror film?
What do I expect to see? These days, I expect to see jump scares.
And what are the 3 worst horror movies ever made? On the spot.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
It's pretty bad.
I don't know. Where's our list?
I was supposed to say, I can answer this question for you.
Yeah, let's just go to that. Let's go to rankings.
Okay, so...
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter's probably near there.
Let's... Actual theatrical films and actual horror. So, Fly, Roar, those don't count. Those that... Blade Trinity... Is that really horror? So... Maybe... Blade Trinity, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and Pet Sematary Bloodlines.
Bloodlines was pretty bad, yeah. I think I'll go with those.
Okay.
I'm sure that there are some more, like, technically worse ones that I've seen that just aren't coming to mind.
Yeah, we haven't reviewed.
Yeah.
And the 3 best horror films of all time.
Yeah! The definitive list.
The Ring, The Exorcist 3, and The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any edits to that?
No, I'm happy with that.
And then our final question for the evening, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like watching horror films?
It depends on the horror film. More times than not, I'd say 7 out of 10. It's something that I'll just go out of my way to do. But it just depends on like I just watched The Leprechaun and that was like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
I fell asleep 3 different times.
And just real quick, adding on to, just because we're a horror book club podcast and we mainly watch movies for like bonus episodes and if they're adaptations. So the same 2 questions that I asked about movies, but about books. Like, what are like your worst horror books and your best horror books?
To the list. I think we actually read like most of the ones that I.
So your bottom 3 are
nothing but Black and Teeth. Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's: The Twisted Ones and The Confederado: A Tale of Mesoamerican Horror.
Okay, so I'm going to change The Confederado for this list to River of Teeth because River of Teeth was professionally published and not self-published.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, we took out the Dollar Babies on the other one, so yeah, that's fair. And then your top 3 is, well, I guess we can't really get The Exorcist, Pet Sematary, and It.
Yeah,
that's pretty solid.
I think those are. And the only thing that I would have called as competition is literally right below it as Dracula.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, all right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you enjoy reading horror novels?
About a 9.
All right. It's a good thing you have a horror book club podcast.
Whenever I'm listening to an audiobook for the podcast, a lot of times I'm reading a separate horror novel that I just feel like reading in between.
Yeah. The books I read in between our books for the podcast are generally not horror. I have read a handful over the years but most of the time I'm filling the not podcast books with Star Wars and similar things. So
some
Tolkien. All right, well, that was good. That was fun. Upcoming on the Horror of Babylon this Sunday is our next book episode, where we are reading No Beast So Fierce by Dane Hucklebridge, which is the real story of the Chempawat tiger, which is the most lethal man killer in history. And then the following Sunday, we're watching the movie The Ghost and the Darkness, which is a theatrical movie about a non-fiction situation that did happen in Africa with 2 other man-killing lions
that they reference in the book,
that they reference and talk about in No Beast So Fierce. And Hef just really likes that movie, so we're doing it because they're kind of tangentially related.
Yeah.
Okay.
They should make a movie about the Chipotle tiger.
We need to get that tiger some Chipotle now.
Yeah.
Stop eating people.
The Chapaway tiger.
If we're going to be like tearing down the forests and killing all the ungulates, we need to be giving these tigers some Chipotle.
I think we should have just given the tiger a pass.
Yeah. And then our next 2 Thursday bonus episodes. Next Thursday is my week. I'll be interviewed by Daniel. We will be doing Hef later down the road. And then the first Thursday in April, which is April 4th, is our next 4 Horsemen bonus episode, where we are watching the modern day slasher Happy Death Day.
I've thought of like 10 separate questions to add to your interview.
I'll write them down or you'll forget them.
Yeah.
But somebody who I could never forget, thank you to our patrons, including Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron, and Ben, the 4th Patron of Hope, and Mia the 5th, the Rainmaker.
She makes it rain, yo.
Oh, she makes it rain. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia. You can also go to the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at 4horsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it in the store, say hello to the proprietor, Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas. And if you do go and you want to buy something, bring a Barbie. And then when he tells you that'll be $6 hairs, rip $6 hairs out of that Barbie's head and hand them to him. He will take them. It's honored tender. Thank you for being bombarded with questions by me tonight.
I'm a little bit of a narcissist, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I might just cancel it. We might just only do you. Probably not. Probably shouldn't. Well, thank you to our patrons. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary, everybody.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.